Hi, this is Charles Kelly. How are you doing today? Let me ask you a question. Does your insurance, your business insurance, assuming you're in business, have business interruption cover? Now, this cover is normally for things like you have a flood, you have a fire, and the insurance company then pays out during business interruption. It's not usually a separate type of policy. It's usually a policy that you would, or an extra bit of cover you would tack onto your buildings cover, your contents cover, that sort of thing. And usually it's just something that you might not even think about, actually. You just think, oh, business interruption, because it's not something that kind of happens every day, business interruption, obviously. So it could be just something that you haven't really thought about, and you've got it. And then suddenly we have this pandemic, and businesses have been told by the government to close down. So they go to their insurance company and say, well, look, this is a business interruption. It's the biggest business interruption of the century, of maybe the last 100 years. And then the insurance company says, well, we don't cover that kind of interruption. No, we're not covering pandemics. We're not covering these sorts of things. So thousands of people have been refused insurance by their insurance company, who kind of collect the premiums. They're quite happy to collect the premiums, but when it comes to paying out, they say, oh, I don't know about that. We don't cover that kind of business interruption insurance. So what's happening with that? Well, a landmark case has been brought to the High Court by the financial regulator, the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority. They've gone to the High Court in an attempt to settle the claim on behalf of the many businesses which obviously had no choice but to close down during this pandemic. Now, it's going to be an 8-day trial. I expect it will just cost a fortune. And they're taking some of Europe's biggest insurance companies to establish whether or not they should pay out for pandemic-related claims. Now, these include companies like Hiscox, RSA, which is the Royal Sun Alliance, Zurich, which is a big company, and 5 other companies which represent most of the companies in the UK. Not every company will obviously insure this kind of thing. So if you're in business and you have a premises, and a physical premises or an office, and you have insurance, maybe you want to check the policy to see if you have included business interruption cover, because I think this could mean a payout if it is sorted out. I think it will be a payout of maybe tens of millions of pounds if the insurance company lose this case. Obviously they're going to fight it because they don't want to lose the case, but it could also save some businesses. Now, many self-employed and small businesses have been suffering badly through just lack of trade. When I go down the high streets, not just in the suburbs, but in central London, I see so many shops that look like they're closed down for good because they're kind of just boarded up, gone away. They just say we're closed for good now. And these include some big companies as well that they've just decided to slim down, rationalise their business, and close down, branches all over the country. And so it is very sad to see. Now, many of you may not realise that you have business interruption insurance, and that could save the day. I think a lot of self-employed people have been hit by, not only obviously lack of business, but lack of help. Now, if you're an employed person or you're a company employing people, millions of people, up to 9 million people have been helped by the job retention scheme or the furlough scheme, where they can furlough workers who just stay at home, and then they can claim back 80% of their salary from, well, I say the government, but it's the taxpayers. It's us, the taxpayers, and it's paid not directly out of tax, I guess, because there's not enough tax to pay for it. It comes from loans and government issuing bonds and basically borrowing money to cover this furlough scheme. However, for self-employed people, they don't qualify for that. Then there was this self-employed grant scheme which was launched, but some self-employed people have not shown big profits for the last year, or maybe they've only started 6 months ago, and they can't claim anything because the revenue say, well, HMRC, I call them the revenue, the Inland Revenue, or the HMRC, say, well, you didn't show much profit last year, so we're not going to give you anything back because you didn't pay much tax last year to start with. And in a new business, a lot of new businesses will have expenses to start up, and they won't pay much tax in the first couple of years. So thousands of people have been hit. I've met people whose businesses have been wiped out. They've literally lost their businesses and lost their homes, and are now staying in a bedsit room paid for by benefits because their money is just gone. And I know several people. I've got a tenant like that's been put into that position that everything has been wiped out. In fact, I've got two tenants that have been put in that position where more or less everything has been wiped out and they're back to square one. And these are guys in their 50s, and it really has been devastating, especially to people in the hospitality type of industry. So self-employed people have really been hit, and I get emails all the time saying, what's happening to self-employed people? Well, I mean, it's just very difficult. And I think thousands of people have been sort of moving home, just going back home, to parents and relatives, and just because they just can't afford to keep paying rent and that sort of thing. But if you have a premises to pay for, then it's even worse, because you may have rent to pay for, you may have council tax and all the other bills to pay for, and that's why sometimes it's just easier to close it all down. Now, if you one word of warning, if you're self-employed and everything is in your name as a sole trader, then you can't really walk away from liabilities and debts, because they will generally come after you. So if you owe rent to landlords, or you owe bills, utility bills, all sorts of other expenses, maybe council tax, and you're a sole trader, then you are personally liable for those things, and that they will come after you. So if you're personally liable and you own a property or you've got other assets, they will come after those assets, even your home. If you've got nothing, of course, and you've got nothing to lose, then the worst that can happen is they'll issue county court judgments against you, or they'll ultimately make you bankrupt. And that can happen in extreme cases. But if you've got a business which is in a limited company, then you have limited liability, and the company is the entity. The corporation will soak up those liabilities, and you can close the company down and walk away from it. Obviously, you need to take advice from your accountant, from maybe an insolvency practitioner or somebody before doing that, because it can have other repercussions. You may have signed a personal guarantee, for instance. You may have rented a shop or a premises, and they've said, well, we want you to sign for this personally, not just as a limited company, which they know that you can easily close down. So just be careful of that, and watch your personal liabilities. Sometimes you can save for years and you can invest and all that sort of thing, and one slip up, one liability, one court case, one judgment going against you can wipe out years of hard work. So do watch out for that. And I just wish everyone luck. I hope this economy gets moving again properly, and that businesses can get back to normal, because I've just seen it's like a bloodbath out there. There's so many businesses, even in popular places in the West End, that have just closed up shop, because this lockdown has just taken so long that I think it's just wiped out people, especially in the hospitality trade. And even though restaurants are open now, they've got so many rules and regulations. They've had to spend so much money putting up screens and that sort of thing, and setting up for this. And then they find they can only get half the people in. People are booking restaurants and then cancelling at the last minute. So that's been a big problem for the restaurant trade. And I think it's because people are tightening their belts. They're trying to save money because they can see that perhaps there's a storm coming again down the road. And they're just being careful. A lot of people are on job furlough schemes that realise that their job may not be there when this furlough scheme ends in October, and they could just be cut off, and that's it. So obviously, and I think wisely so, it's better to be saving money and putting something aside for a rainy day, because we're in a rainy day now, but there might be even a hurricane coming on the way. In fact, the Office for Budget Responsibility estimated that unemployment could reach 4 million if we don't get a fast recovery. Other forecasters have said that unemployment could reach levels of 10 or 15%. And this comes after, at the end of December, they were telling us that, unemployments were at record lows, and the country was booming again. We had the Boris bounce. Do you remember that? The Boris bounce. Now people are applying for bounce back loans because they're going out of business. So it's a very sad situation and I do feel sorry, especially for people running a business. When I was running a business, we always lived month to month in a way, because we had money coming in, but it was always going out the door through salaries and and then the taxman was banging on your door for the PAYE or VAT, and they don't wait. They hound you. If you're a day late, they fine you, and there was always something to pay for. And even though business seemed good, you're always juggling with the money and paying this and paying that, and you never seem to get ahead of yourself. So I know what it's like for businesses, and I really don't know how they can survive with when you lose a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 and 5 months worth of trade. I would not have been able to survive with that sort of situation. Yes, there's a job furlough scheme, but that doesn't help with all of the other bills and the other things that you need to keep paying for. So there you go. My tip for the day is to check your insurance policy and check your buildings cover, because a lot of these policies are kind of combined policies which cover, they say, do you want this, do you want that, do you want public liability, do you want employer's liability? And it's sort of, it used to be like you take out 6 individual policies. Now you've got these combined policies. Well, I used to have them, and I used to more or less tick everything. Do you want legal expenses cover? Yes, have some of that. And add on these all bits and pieces. Always make sure you're well insured. I think that's a tip that wealthy people follow. That wealthy people usually have insurance cover, for their life, for their inheritance, for everything, and especially for their property. People who are flying by the seat of their pants and haven't got any money, they think, well, I'll try and save money. I won't take insurance, or I'll have that cheaper policy, and then it ends up costing them more in the long run, because sod's law is going to happen to you the day you sort of decide not to take that insurance policy. Now, I'm not totally against insurance companies. I worked for insurance companies, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, because I was in the financial services industry for 25 years. So I do know a little bit about it. And I know that on the one hand, insurance companies are always seen as the bad guys, but on the other hand, people do make a lot of fraudulent claims. And it's quite, I think insurance companies are seen as fair game to stick in a claim for a lost this or a lost that. Or, I knew a guy that, he would try and pay for his holiday by claiming he lost a camera on holiday and try and put in claims. So, and that all cost everybody money in the end of the day, because all these fraudulent claims that they have to pay out for ends up costing all of us money as they add on things to insurance policies. But now you've got to be very careful with that, because now there's a fraud register, and if they suspect that there's been fraud, they can put you on this register without going to court or anything. They can put you on this register, and then you're seen within the industry as someone who makes fraudulent claims. You're almost like branded as a criminal, and that could affect your credit rating, your ability to get insurance in the future and get credit and finance if they put this fraud report on you, if you get caught trying to defraud an insurance company. So be very careful with that situation. It's not really worth it at the end of the day, trying these little tricks, because they know all the tricks. They know the situation. I read something else the other day that a country called the Philippines is the main place you can get fraudulent death certificates. So if people want to fake their death and try and claim on the insurance and do a sort of a Reggie Perrin, that old show that used to be on where he disappears into the sea, if people want to fake their death, apparently the Philippines is the place where you can go and get a bent doctor to sign a death certificate for you. That's something I read. I'm not saying that's the Philippines, but that is something I read. And I'd be very careful, because insurance companies are not idiots. They know, that if people are claiming they died in a country where there is, let's say, a few people around that will take money to do things, then they'll go and investigate that, and they probably won't pay out. I know somebody that runs his own Lloyd's underwriting company. He mainly deals with medical cover, but he said, yeah, we can spot the dodgy claims, and we send an agent, or we have an agent in each country to go and investigate these things, and they can soon find these things out. So I wouldn't think about doing that at the moment, because the insurance companies are quite wise to this sort of fraudulent claim. However, if you've got a genuine claim, then definitely do check your insurance policy and try and look into that and see if you can get some sort of claim for business interruption. But it looks like this High Court case this week, so by next week or the next couple of weeks, we should have a judgment to see whether the insurance companies are going to have to pay out probably tens, maybe hundreds of millions of pounds in claims for coronavirus pandemic-led business interruption claims. So we'll have to watch this space and see what happens. So thanks very much for listening, and have a great day. And thanks also to Ronnie there, and other people who watch on Facebook Live. Always great to see you. I do enjoy your feedback as well. And if you've got any questions, just drop me a line on Messenger or at charles@charleskelly.net. Yesterday I was talking about Warren Buffett. In fact, now Warren Buffett actually said something along the lines of insurance companies are just money-making machines. The money comes in, you sit on the premiums, you have to pay out a percentage because the actuaries will calculate that out of every £100 they get in, they're going to have to pay out maybe £5, £10 or whatever the figure is, depending on the type of claim, and that then they can use that money to make more money. So that's why Warren Buffett owns insurance companies, and he owns banks, insurance, and credit card companies as well, MasterCard and Visa, and Goldman Sachs, and he doesn't own them outright, but he owns substantial proportions of them through his investment vehicle Berkshire Hathaway. So I talked yesterday about his investment philosophy and his investment style, and talked about whether you could apply that to property investing. So have a look at that episode, which should be on Facebook Live from yesterday. So thanks for listening, and great to see you. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day, all of you. Bye for now.